Since 2007, we have encouraged people around the world to switch off their Since 2007, we have encouraged people around the world to switch off their lights during Earth Hour to call attention to climate change.
More than a decade later, the climate crisis remains, made worse by the rapid loss of biodiversity and nature.
Nature underpins everything around us, from food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe.
It impacts our very livelihoods and our quality of life. Today, Earth Hour aims to spark global conversations on protecting nature, not only to combat the climate crisis, but to ensure our own health, happiness, prosperity, and even survival.
With your support, Earth Hour can be a spotlight moment that puts nature at the center of international conversations.
Together, we can speak up and show our leaders that nature matters and urgent action must be taken to reverse its rapid loss.
Join us on Saturday, March 26th at 8:30 p.m. by turning off all unnecessary lights and joining us on the path to net zero.
Greetings, my name's Eugene Dean. Welcome to Earth Hour Live 2022. Tonight we have a great show for you to enjoy. Lots of topics are going to be covered, and we have some wonderful guests coming to join us in the studio. We're going to talk about things like electric vehicles and why should individuals and governments make the switch. How is fossil fuel generation impacting communities around the Belco plant? What is going on in terms of our transition to renewable energy, and what's happened since the Energy IRP in 2018. We're going to get a quick word from some people in Earth Hour Global, and we're also going to learn about sustainable farming, and is it even possible to grow organic foods in Bermuda? What's all the fuss going on about single-use plastics, and why are governments around the world implementing single-use plastic bans? We're going to get some updates about some sustainable energy projects in Bermuda, and learn about things that are being done to make large-scale events more sustainable. All this and more tonight on Earth Hour Live 2022. So stay tuned, look out for a great show this evening, and before we start, we're just going to have a few words from our sponsor, our lead sponsor, SiriusPoint.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Holder. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for SiriusPoint Bermuda. SiriusPoint is a leading global reinsurer with a long list of solutions and a short list of priorities: professionalism, flexibility, and service. The values of sound risk management, good governance, sustainability, and social responsibility are reflected in how we operate our business and treat our colleagues, our clients, and the community. At SiriusPoint, we believe that the values that Greenrock uphold are aligned with our core values. And so it's important for us to work with a company that is doing the things that we see as being relevant and necessary for us to have a sustainable and viable community for years to come.
Greenrock is a registered charity working to empower individuals and companies to do their part in making Bermuda socially, economically, and environmentally more sustainable. We are a very open and collaborative organization that works at all levels of society to deliver impact and bring about positive change. Through our programs, events, and public advocacy, we are committed to inspiring environmental action, improving education, and raising awareness about the steps we can all take to live and work more sustainably each and every day.
Our mission is to engage the community, share solutions for a sustainable Bermuda. Our vision is to educate, raise awareness, change mindsets, inspire action, and encourage respect for the environment and people of all ages.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Earth Hour Live. And tonight I'm very pleased to have two good friends of mine, Denise Rivera and Elisa Lockwood of the Bermuda Clean Air Coalition.
Yes, how are you?
I'm good, give thanks.
Yeah.
So Denise, last time you joined us on the show, you told us about all the things the BCAC was doing, you know, some of the response that you got from Belco. So we thought it'd be great to bring you back on to get an update. So what's happened since the last time we talked?
Okay. So for those that have not heard of BCAC, we are members in a community that have just come together to fight a problem that the community is facing. And that just, for our problem, happens to be Belco. And so since we spoke to you last, the stories are still continuing, unfortunately. People are still having issues with the pollution. There are still concerns about whether or not it's going to be fixed. I do absolutely have to give a shout out to those people at Belco that have been trying to, you know, mitigate problems. There have been some improvements, I guess, in numbers. But unfortunately, this is one of those topics where you know, you can't say that I'm just sort of kind of killing you and not completely killing you. So it's still an issue. So we recently got an update from Belco, and they obviously have made some progress in some of the things that they've done to try to mitigate the impact of that last tower that was put up. However, the community still doesn't think it's enough. So some of the pluses have been that Belco has put measures in place to have the teams go out and talk to community members, find out what they're doing. So
because that was a concern before.
Correct. That was one of the requests that we had.
Alienated or kind of like disregarded and things of that nature.
And they did. So they did listen to us on a few of the points that we asked them to consider. However, there are other things that have come up. Like, for example, there are still some people who are saying they're calling to say that they've been impacted by Belco, but then maybe told by Belco, well, you're outside of the range of, you know, the zone that we cover.
Oh, okay. So there's a
zone, correct. But unfortunately, it's a zone that's defined by Belco, not a zone that's defined by the people in the community that are impacted.
And Belco has never told us what the zone is. So we've repeatedly asked them to inform us, and they've declined.
Right. So there's been some good, and there's been some not so much progress, and that's one of the examples. So for those families, like my family is a family that they did come out to, and we since which have had, you know, roof cleaned and painted a couple of times since we last spoke to you. We have a water filtration system now.
Okay, so that's
so
an
there's
improvement.
Progress, and so I do commend them for listening, you know, to some of the problems. But we do still have people out in the community who have called and have been told no. So it's a little bit of progress, but a little bit of, you know, still pushing the community away with the needs that they have. One of the other things that I think is also going in the right direction is their responsiveness to certain individuals who are calling and complaining. And so there is an opportunity here for Belco to do better, and they admit it. There are some people that are complaining, and they will come out and see you. So it is progress, unfortunately, that because of the issue, is just not enough. And so the community still can't open windows a lot of times. Beautiful day like today, and there are some that they can't get a fresh breath of air because the minute they open their windows, the smell comes in.
All the exhaust and everything comes in.
Correct. You still have people who, you know, are saying that there are cracks in situations that are happening. So it is absolutely a situation that will never be fixed. Therefore, it's making us question, okay, what do you do about a problem that can't be fixed 100%? And I think Elisa's going to share some of the other bits of progress.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the kind of odors and the fumes, and you know, I live in Ocean Lane, and we still get exactly the same level of fumes. You know, Belco has taken certain measures, they've said, to adjust their engines and to try and reduce the exhaust from the new plant, but you know, we haven't felt a difference. Some days it's still, you know, so bad that we don't want to let the kids out to play, we don't want to open the windows. And we do have a monitoring station on Ocean Lane.
Right, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. So Belco was required to fund this station, which is run by BIOS. And for the first year, they were providing us with the readouts of the levels of emissions that were being detected. And they were comparing those against the UK standard.
Yes.
Yeah, because in Bermuda, we have a Clean Air Act from 1993 that has standards that are vastly outdated. I mean, nobody else in the world almost, or certainly, the West, has standards for clean air that are set the bar as low as Bermuda. And one of the, great elements of progress that has come about thanks to BCAC and also working closely with, government and BELCO, has been that there is a new draft legislation coming through the system, but what we don't know is, at what point that's going to actually come into force. But what has been found through the data that's coming from the station is that there are exceedances of the UK standard caused by the BELCO emissions, which is something that is, quite a serious issue. However, for the past year or so, we haven't been getting any further readouts from the station. So I would say that that's an area where progress is needed.
Yeah. So there's a zone that you're not aware of.
We don't know what that
you're
zone
aware
is.
of the zone, you just don't know how it's defined.
Correct. We know there is a zone.
And now the data from the testing station, because I remember there was a time where there was an exceedance.
Yeah.
But it was an exceedance based on criteria that we don't measure in Bermuda.
Yeah.
But since then, you're saying that there has been no new data.
That's right. I mean, presumably the data is being collected, but it's not being shared with the BCAC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are two challenges. One, well, first let's do the positives. They're more responsive. They're going out in the community, being more proactive, things of that nature.
Right.
Great.
Not perfectly, but more than what they were.
More than what they were.
Correct.
Things have been corrected. I heard you mention a water filtration system. That was one of the things that the group was strongly advocating for before. So there's been a breakthrough in that regard.
Yes.
So is that now accessible to other people?
As long as you're in the zone. So when BELCO comes out and assesses, number one, you have to be in the zone, and then they'll assess the property to see what it qualifies for.
Right. Okay. So.
Yeah.
So because I remember that they were looking at certain extreme cases. For example, your parents' house was one of those. I think the last show, one of the neighbors shared the bottle of water.
Yes.
And that water ended up at a meeting.
Correct. So what's interesting though is that there are still days after the roof has been painted, even with the water filtration system, that's great, but you can still collect that water a few days afterwards. If there are incidences of the tower after the roof has been painted, it's literally, obsolete within days of being painted. So it's a little bit of a Band-Aid that's so temporary that it still ends up where you have a roof that is still has residue on it, or from the bursts that come out of the tower. The car is either getting it on the car, or your roof now looks like you didn't just get it painted a month ago. The water filtration system, within 3 months, the water filtration system looks like chocolate pudding.
Wow.
So it is, although the effort that BELCO is putting forward is honorable, because they're trying to do the right thing by as many people, I think, as however they measure the zone. But it's a little bit obsolete when literally a month later you're back to square one.
All right, so this brings up, I guess, kind of like the big elephant in the room. It's just like, well, one, many question, why are we building a brand new fossil fuel plant in this day and age?
Correct. Correct.
And it's a fuel plant that runs on heavy fuel oil.
Right.
Which is the dirtiest kind of fuel that you can get.
Right. And apparently that's a cost issue, meaning that you can get lighter fuels, but then the cost of electricity goes up exponentially.
Right.
So because the legislation is such that the fuel cost is passed right on to the consumer.
That's right.
So we would benefit, but we would just have to pay for that.
Yeah. I mean, both the fuel cost and the tax is all passed on to the consumer. And so something the BCAC has been floating is the idea that, perhaps given the health impacts it makes sense to have a lighter fuel type and for both the government and Belco in some way to absorb some of that additional cost.
I see.
So the hard part now comes because Belco has been trying. We believe they are. We believe genuinely there's some good people that work there. So we don't have no reason to think that they're maliciously not trying to improve. But because it's never going to be 100%, it's causing us to ask different questions. So, you ask yourself, how do you quantify compensation for a neighborhood that is enduring this type of population? You can't put it somewhere else because it just means another community is going to suffer. So Bermuda is a residential place. So you can't tell me just wait till 2023 until the renewable energy stuff comes in and just be patient. That's what the community is notwithstanding. So it causes us now to ask, okay, what do we do for the next 13 to 15 years while we get to renewable energy? And unfortunately, Belco has to take some accountability for that. So now the community is asking questions like, okay, how do you compensate us? In some ways, it is doing the roofs, doing the water filtration systems, not based on your zone, but by people who are impacted. And then if you're going to take till 2023 to do renewable energy, are you going to pay for my Belco bill during that time? Are you going to waive Belco bills for impacted people? Are you going to pay for pure water so that they can drink? Are you going to put in air filtration systems so that the air inside the house can be fresher possibly than the air outside of the house? So there are some things that need to be discussed on, you can't fix it 100%, so what are you going to do for the people in the meantime? Is it really going to take 13 years? Does it need to take 13 years for you to do renewable energy, or is there a way for you to speed that up?
Right.
So that's where we're coming now. I think BCAC's pressure has resulted in some good things.
Right.
I think that Belco has been willing to partner with us on improving some things, but now we're to the point where we're asking, now what? Because we can't just wait 13 years.
So when we pose the question, how are communities being impacted by being close to a fossil fuel generating plant, then unfortunately the impact is still just as severe as it was before.
Correct.
In spite of the good intentions and the good efforts by Belco,
Correct.
the reality is the reality, which is why we are advocating and constantly pushing for a shift to renewable energy.
Yes.
So to the broader community, you're listening to these stories, and we're going to include some stories from talking directly to some other members of the community to see what's happening in their homes. But it's important for us to realize that there are people being directly impacted by all of this. And so together as a community, we need to advocate, we need to do everything that we can to reduce these emissions so that people can live normal, healthy lives like everyone else does in the country. So thank you guys very much for joining us.
Yes,
it's a pleasure to have you again. I hope that we have a lot better news for the community soon come.
And we don't have to wait 13 years.
And we don't have to wait 13 years to get it.
Correct.
But thank you everyone for watching also, and we'll be right back. Give thanks.
Burning fossil fuels like coal and oil releases greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide. These gases are building up in our atmosphere. If the total carbon dioxide in the atmosphere exceeds a certain threshold, then global average temperatures will increase to dangerous levels. This threshold is known as the carbon budget. Since 1870, we have emitted so much carbon dioxide that we have already used up over 2/3 of our carbon budget. If we carry on releasing carbon dioxide at current rates, we will use up the remaining carbon budget in the 2030s. Cutting carbon emissions will slow down the rate at which we are approaching the carbon budget threshold. However, until we reduce our emissions to zero, carbon dioxide will still accumulate in the atmosphere, and we will hit the carbon budget threshold at some point. Even if the world takes drastic action to cut emissions, there is still a significant risk we will overshoot the carbon budget, and we will need to actively remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. This can be done in part by natural solutions like planting more forests, and also through innovative negative emissions technologies. However, these technologies are unproven at scale and come with environmental implications. Relying on them is risky, and they're currently an expensive option. That's why we must step up the pace of action and accelerate the transition to a zero-carbon future. Join us in the move to a cleaner, greener, fairer future.
Okay, greetings again, everyone. Welcome back to Earth Hour Live 2022. And right now I'm here with Nigel Bridges from the Regulatory Authority. Greetings, Nigel.
Yes, greetings to you all. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, give thanks. So, Nigel, we brought you here because there's a lot of conversation in the community around energy and fossil fuel energy generation. You know, earlier tonight we interviewed some of the members from the Bermuda Clean Air Coalition. They were given an update on how the community is being impacted by living near to the power plant. So there's a lot of conversation around transitioning into renewable energy. This is the goal, this is this ideal where we can generate our energy without all these emissions. So I wanted to talk to you to get just so we can get an understanding of like, what would it actually take for us to transition from fossil fuel energy generation to renewables? What are some of the things that we have to consider in that transition?
So this is a question being asked around the world. So it's not new or specific to Bermuda. That is the global trend for not just island nations, but the larger nations as well. Most nations are looking to move away from fossil fuel generation to a renewable energy mix. The benefits of renewable energy obviously are it reduces dependency on foreign fossil fuels, so it removes the potential volatility of those costs as well. Something that we know far too much of in Bermuda with fluctuating fall prices.
Right, and that's why you have that fuel adjustment.
Exactly, it captures that fluctuation in the fuel prices.
And that all gets passed on to the consumer.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. But one thing which each of us can do individually is to practice energy conservation and energy efficiency. Energy efficiency, doing the same work you would do with less energy, less electricity. Energy conservation, using no electricity at all. For example, just turning off your lights when you leave a room. That's a form of energy conservation. So those are the things which we can do ourselves to have an impact on not only reducing our costs, but also helping the overall network, electricity network. When you use less electricity, and it reduces the dependency of again, using fuels of the grid supplying those resources.
Right. So yeah, I know this has come up in a lot of conversation, and I didn't even think of it myself initially, but it's like, if everyone starts to use the actual electricity that we have more efficiency, which means that we're using less of it, then in that transition, then we need to buy technology to provide less energy overall. So that again contributes to a reduction in the cost because it's a low investment, you know?
And that is critical to some island nations which have had a smooth or relatively quick transition to renewable energy. The countries which have very high penetrations of renewable energy are those with small populations or small demand. For example, Montserrat, they have a very small population there. They have a 750 kilowatts PV system, and that supplies 50% of their electricity needs. Obviously, we have a 6 megawatt PV facility here, and that is just a small fraction of our electricity needs. So reducing the demand is critical as well.
Yeah. So a lot of people are concerned about cost. You mentioned cost. There's been a lot of conversation about, if we transition to renewable energy, the costs are going to go up. But then on the other side, you have the view that, well, actually we need to transition to renewable energy because the fuel is free, and that's ultimately going to bring the cost down. You know what I mean? So what can you tell our audience about that conversation? And what are the things that would either contribute to it going up or down, etc.?
Well, one of the strict benefits you get from renewable energy is that your costs are known. Whether they are high or low, you know the cost, and you remove the volatility of the electricity cost.
Right.
And so currently with electricity or renewable energy electricity, there are upfront costs, And again, you would know these costs, so that is a benefit. But it is a short-term outlook versus a long-term view, which you have to weigh up. There may be costs, additional costs up front. However, in the long run, there will be not only potentially costs, financial benefits, but of course there will be environmental and social benefits as well. Right. So it's all just weighing up all of the costs, financial, economical, social, environmental.
Right. And that's a very important point to kind of mention, because right now the situation that we find ourselves in is far from ideal, because our electricity costs are dependent on circumstances outside of our control. So what you're saying is that even though when we transition to renewable, even though there's costs, obviously, in buying the new infrastructure and stuff, you know what that is up front, and the fuel is free.
Yes.
And so those costs you're able to spread over a period of time without having to worry about that something went on in this country that caused the supply to decrease and the price went up and things of that nature.
Exactly. But one thing that we value very, very much in Bermuda is reliability. When you go to hit the switch for your lights, you want your lights to come on.
Yes.
And that is a problem which renewable generation, which we have in Bermuda, solar and wind, has not yet overcome.
Right.
There will be times when there's no sun, nighttime, or cloudy days, and no wind. And so we have to prepare. We have to be ready for those situations. Right now, that is the. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just the intermittency scenario is what you're talking about. That you have to have a way to bridge the intermittency.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So and right now, that is the role that fossil fuel generation provides. It provides reliability. Renewable energies and battery technologies are not far off. We currently have battery technology in Bermuda. Belco has battery storage on the island already, 10 megawatts, 5 megawatt hour capacity. So that is a start. To just put that in, what does that mean? That means we could supply 10% of our electricity needs for about a half an hour. So there is a way to go still, but with the advancement in technologies, it will get there.
So what I've been made to understand is that the battery technology is there. It's just the cost right now is relatively high. So you could buy enough battery storage to provide energy for the whole country. It's just that the cost would mean that our prices for that electricity will go through the roof. So it's going to take some time, I guess, for the cost of that technology to go down, and then it would make more feasible for people for Bermuda, for us to scale up battery storage for the country. Yeah,
precisely. With engineers, they will always find a technical solution. So it all ultimately comes back to cost. And what is the cost to you? Renewable energy is valued differently by different parts of our population. It all goes back to its cost to you.
Right. So in 2018, we were involved in this Greenrock. When I say we, yes. There was a lot of movement in the community. The regulatory had, an integrated resource plan that was in development, and the public was consulted for views. A lot of people made submissions in support of renewable energy, and for the most part, those people were very pleased with the outcome of the IRP. We had some targets that were set. It was clear that we were moving towards using renewable energy that was prioritized, and also some things were put in place to prevent other fossil fuel technologies from entering into the market. So just as an update from the RA, can you tell us a bit about what's happened since then?
Oh, sure. So we started the IRP development in 2018. We finished in 2019, and that put us on a roadmap. The IRP put us on a roadmap to replace our current generation with renewable energy generation over the next 20 years. So it laid out Bermuda's generation resource plan over the next 20 years. The intent of the IRP is to update it to at least every 5 years with the newest information that we have available. There's going to be new information for demand. As we know, we've just gone through the pandemic. Demand has decreased significantly since we did the last IRP. There are new generation technologies, new renewable energy technologies. The costs are different. So all those factors will be updated into the next version of the IRP. So some of the things which we had were outcomes from the IRP. It set a target of up to 30 megawatts for distributed generation for solar. Since we did the IRP, that has increased by approximately 75%. It's going from around 4 megawatts of solar. Again, this is small-scale residential commercial solar, and it's up to 7 megawatts now. Again, the capacity is there for an additional 23 over the next 20 years. So there's lots of room for growth in that area. We have also identified 21 megawatts of bulk generation solar. 6 megawatts has just been implemented at the finger, and we have also the RA itself has also gone out and looking for sites to offer for development for potential developers. We have also had our bulk generation procurement rules, which identifies the process on how we intend to purchase or to procure future generation, and that allows any developer at any time to come to the RA, to approach the RA and say, no, we have a proposal, we have a project, we would like to have this considered for a bulk generation application license. So not only can we actually go solicit for generation, you can come to us with a plan as well.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it sounds like that move has helped to open the market.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. So now, as you know, there is one TDR licensee, so one transmission, distribution licensee, and retailer, but there are multiple bulk generators. We have Belco, we have Tynes Bay, and we also have Saturn Solar and at the finger. Yeah. So the RP also laid out a plan for wind generation. The next step, which was laid out in the RP, was to develop a study to assess its economic and financial and technical viability. Proud to say that we have completed the first phase of the wind study. It was a desktop wind study which said, there is promise in this technology, and you should move forward to the second phase with a more advanced technical and financial study. So that is in its early stages. We are doing a CBETA, or plan to do a CBETA assessment, and also a further financial grade wind study assessment as well. Right. And also from that study, it said that we should consult with the public, with the stakeholders, so the government, those that will be affected by a potential wind development, fisheries, boating operators, the public. So we will consult all stakeholders in due course.
Okay. All right, Nigel. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure our audience really appreciated that update. I know it was good for me to hear as well, even though we talk to you at Greenrock on a fairly regular basis. It's always good to get an update and to know what's going on. So Bermuda, we hear that there is real opportunity around renewable energy. It is possible. There are a lot of things that we have to consider, and we can all contribute to that process. So that's what we encourage. We would like to see us all transition to renewables so we can have stable, clean, reliable energy that services our community. So give thanks again, Nigel, and we'll be right back. Key initiatives for Greenrock include the Green Building Forum, encouraging the adoption of green practices in the workplace. Greenrock Youth Council, encouraging students to take action within their homes, schools, and communities to encourage sustainable living and to lobby for more environmentally friendly policies. Earth Hour. At its heart, Earth Hour is about generating a global sense of community, showing that people care about the environment and our future, while also demonstrating the power we possess as people to bring about monumental change. The Living Green Expo, providing a public platform for businesses in the green economy to showcase sustainable and environmentally friendly products and services to the broader community. And Renewable Energy Strategy, working with key stakeholders to develop a comprehensive plan that will revolutionize the way we use electricity and transition Bermuda from its sole reliance on fossil fuel generation to clean, renewable energy generation that is reliable, affordable, good for the environment, and most importantly, harmless to human health. All right, welcome back, everyone. Again, my name is Eugene Dean, and this is Earth Hour Live. We've been talking about the impact that fossil fuel generation is having on the communities surrounding the Belco plant. And we had a conversation with some of the leaders or spokespersons from the Bermuda Clean Air Coalition. Now we have someone from the community. So greetings, Jermaine, how you doing?
Greetings, afternoon. How you doing, Eugene?
All right, give thanks. So Jermaine, you live in the Monteiro area.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's relatively close, pretty much next door to the plant. So just give the audience a bit of an idea of what it's been like for you living near to the Belco power plant.
Okay, I've lived by the Belco power plant now for the last 17 years.
Okay.
And, you know, there was always little coincidentals here and there, but since the last 2 years now, it's gotten worse. The incidents are more frequent, and it's getting a little bit unbearable now. Yeah.
Understood. So the instances you're saying have primarily come since the building of the new plant?
Yeah, so basically, like, since the last 2 years, when the new North Stack came online, there's been more incidences of rust, debris, more incidences of strong smell, vibrations are possible also. So it's just become more frequent, and it's become more of a nuisance now. Like, it's much more rust. It's much more of a smell, you know what I mean?
So you said 17 years, so I'm thinking, when you bought the property, did any of this go through your mind? Did you ever anticipate that you would be in a situation like this today when you bought the house?
Not actually. When I bought it, well, it was my great-granny's house. She lived there for 70 plus years. And I knew that when I moved there, that Belco had contracted for the roof to get cleaned every 2 years. I knew that was part of their responsibilities. So obviously because of the stacks, you know, and debris. But I never did I foresee this type of debris or these type of incidences occurring on such a regular basis. So yeah, it's definitely it's gotten maybe quadrupled. It's quadrupled in as far as the.
So it wasn't really a nuisance before. It was like periodically it would be something, but it wasn't really a big deal. And I guess the community was appreciative that Belco was cleaning roofs every 2 years.
Exactly. You get your odd smells, and the roofs are being taken care of every 2 years. So everyone was like, okay, well, this is okay, you know, you can bear it.
You can bear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, even because I'm thinking, you know, I mean, you know, I was in high school there at Berkeley. You see what I'm saying? So, and I don't really remember the plant being so much of an issue. You know what I mean? But like the smells, I'm sure you get used to it. So what is it like? Is it that you notice the smells a lot, or is it other people that are?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because I've been living in the neighborhood so long now that the smell doesn't even really seem to bother me as much. But when someone comes in from outside of the neighborhood, like, it's not uncommon for them to say, hey, you don't smell that? Like, you don't notice that scent, you know what I mean? And I know there's been more reports of people that are actually closer than I am that have had, you know, the smell come right into their room. So it's a very pungent odor, very inconveniencing.
Right. Well, some people, we've been told, they're not able to open the windows. So even when it's a nice day, they have to use air conditioning all the time because as soon as they open up the window, it's just
this is facts.
Just the smell or smoke, different things is coming inside. The exhaust is coming inside their house, you know?
It's facts. And my wife and children have allergies, so I'm not sure if that's contributing to their allergies. You know?
Yeah, it was interesting because we spoke with one family and they had a family member who passed. And when they got the reports back from the hospital, they actually asked if the family member was a smoker. And they told them that they had smoker's lungs. And they were like, well, no, they don't smoke. You know what I mean? So it made them start to think about other situations and you know, because they hadn't really considered it before. Yeah. So let's take a look at some of the damages. You know? So if you can explain, you shared some pictures with us.
Yeah, so this is a part of my roof, one of the gutters. But this was taken last year, September, if I'm not mistaken. So It's periodically gotten worse. And last year I actually painted my roof. So I do it, Belco pays me to do it every 2 years.
Okay.
So I painted my roof maybe last year, I want to say May. And so this was in September. So, I mean, every morning you come out, I go up there and I look at new spots.
And there's new spots on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I see here some, and it's just like rust spots and stuff.
Yeah, it's rust spots, and then, you know, obviously sometimes it happens overnight to the dew, and it makes the spots run.
It makes it run.
Yeah.
Yeah, to different locations.
Yeah.
All right. So this was interesting.
Yeah.
Explain that picture.
Yeah, so this is my car. I have a teal and black Suzuki Vitara, and very, you know, metallic type sort of paint. So the morning that this happened, I guess they blew out the stack through the night, and I come out in the morning. This was like 2 weeks ago, and the car was just full of soot. You know, soot on the hood, soot on the roof, soot on my son's brand new Peugeot Speedflight on his bike seat. You know, and what happens is that if you don't attend to this right away, the sun just bakes it right into the metal. So I have permanent damage on my car right now in the paint that I would either require a factory spray job, or Z-Bird, who does the waxing, said that they may need to give me a high-powered waxing or a different sort of
get it out.
To try to get it out.
So this is the roof of your car?
Yeah, that's the roof of my car right there. That's the morning of when I came out, where the soot and the ash has landed on my car, and then the dew and everything has just made it run. You know, so it's highly visible. And apparently, if you don't have a darker color car, you're not really going to see the damage that this soot is doing to your paint. But because my car is darker, you can see the permanent damage that it's doing to the paint.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and obviously it's getting down into my tank, and and it's all on my property, my outside furniture, my steps. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's just rust spots.
So last year, when we interviewed, one of the residents, he was showing us some water that he collected off one of his neighbor's roofs, and it was brown. Same thing you talked about from the rust, and then the rain or the dew, and then it just ran, and it was just all sitting in the gutters.
Yep.
So I know that the Clean Air Coalition was advocating for water filtration systems.
Yes.
My understanding is that some people have gotten them.
Yes.
Have you had any conversations?
Yeah. So I've been denied because I told that I was not. So my neighbor has gotten one. He's 100 meters from my doorstep, but he's up a little higher. So they said that he was up higher and in direct view of the plant. But the same soot that's landing on his roof and his car is landing on my roof and my car. So how could I be denied if the same pollution is happening, in my household as opposed to his?
Right.
It's the same difference.
So when we spoke to some of your colleagues from the Clean Air Coalition, they were speaking about that, Belco has a zone, but they have yet to release any data about what that zone actually looks like.
Exactly.
So the concern is now that some people are getting approved and some people are getting denied. What they did say is that they're very appreciative. Belco has been a lot more attentive. They've been being more proactive, coming out in the community and things of that nature. But there's some questions around how people are qualifying or not qualifying.
Exactly. It's like if you have on a yellow shirt, you may get your water filtration system, but if you have on a black shirt, you're not going to get it. So it's like you're at the mercy of, I guess, perception or interpretation.
Right. Understood. So I guess the overarching thing is that these measures are not actually solving the problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's somewhat of a Band-Aid, although I'm sure everybody appreciates the efforts of Belco in the community.
Yes.
What is it looking like in terms of getting towards a solution?
I have no idea, but I was told that Belco said by 2035 that these challenges will be eradicated, or they will be able to meet the deadline or make significant changes by 2035. That's 13 years from now, Eugene. 13 years from now. I don't know if, the community can actually put up with that for another 13 years, you know what I mean?
Wow.
It seems like quite a long way from now before it gets solved.
Understood. So thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate you coming in. It really highlights the need for us to move towards renewable energy.
Yep.
Because the pollution that comes from fossil fuel energy generating plants is just a reality. And it's a reality that we're not able to get beyond. We may be able to make some small improvements. We may be able to clean up some of the mess after it's made, but in the end of the day, the pollution will remain. So that's something that we really need to look at as a country. There are people who are being impacted on a day-to-day basis. It's in the water, it's in the air, it's on their property, You know, it's there when they get the bath. You know, they can't drink the water sometimes. Some people not even able to open up the windows. So it's very important for us to understand that even though we may not be impacted personally, that others are. So thank you again for
Thanks,
coming
Gene.
on and
Appreciate
sharing
it, bro.
with us. Yeah,
man.
and we'll be back with more from Earth Hour Live.
Some of our goals for the next 12 months are to produce a strategy document that outlines our focus for the next 5 to 10 years, continue working with KBB and BEST on Beyond Plastic Bermuda, a collaborative campaign tasked with the goal of supporting government's intended ban on single-use plastic, support the efforts of the Bermuda Clean Air Coalition as they seek to reduce the negative impacts experienced by those living in close proximity to the Belco power plant. Premiere a new documentary titled The Seeds of Vandana Shiva to encourage a national conversation on sustainable farming and food security. Produce a second Earth Hour live broadcast to conclude our annual Earth Hour campaign. Collaborate with environmental NGOs to celebrate Earth Day 2022. Host a Living Green Expo that represents all aspects of the green economy, and continue working with stakeholders in the energy industry to expedite our transition to renewable energy.
All right, so greetings everyone. We have a really great treat this evening. We managed to get in touch with Bunny Chia from Earth Hour Global. She's actually the head of brand for the WWF. So greetings, Bunny. Welcome to our live broadcast.
Hello, Eugene. Very excited to be here tonight.
Yes, give thanks, give thanks. So Bunny, we wanted to bring you in because we wanted to give our viewers just some sense of what it's like to be involved with the global efforts around Earth Hour. We know what it's like in Bermuda to do the things that we're doing, but what is it like connecting people all around the world?
Absolutely. It's been a privilege for me to be able to be part of this movement for the last 10 years. And one of the coolest thing about Earth Hour on the night of Earth Hour globally is that we essentially celebrate Earth Hour around the world almost for the 20 hours. So as Earth Hour takes place, all of them starting from Samoa Island all the way across the world at the end, and across Europe, across Latin America, and the Americas. So we get to celebrate Earth Hour as we witness lights off around the world, switching off for the planet. And that's one really cool aspect as we get news and get footage and get celebrity tweeting about us and sharing with us, and people around the world sharing with us what they're doing for the night of Earth Hour.
All right. Yeah, that really is cool. So how have you found it over the years? Is this Earth Hour movement, is it something where people are kind of rushing to get involved, or is it really hard trying to connect different countries and pull people in? Like, what's that experience like?
Absolutely. Earth Hour takes place in over 190 countries and territories around the world. And what's really, really great about this movement, that it is open source. So anyone and everyone can take part in Earth Hour. The inspiration of Earth Hour is that, anyone can take action for the planet. So connecting people can be challenging, but with the power of technology, the world we're living in today, so interconnected, remotely and virtually, it's actually helped the movement grow tremendously over the last 15 years. So Earth Hour would not be where it is today without the power of social media, without the power of technology that can connect one of you, like you and me right now tonight, to celebrate and to really look at Earth Hour and to take Earth Hour to the level it is today.
Yes. So give thanks for that. Yeah. So for people who are watching this now, what outlets or avenues are available for people to connect with other Earth Hour efforts around the world?
Absolutely. So on earthhour.org, we have one of our most popular page, which is Earth Hour events page. And that's a page where you can actually add your own event, whether it could be your own community event, school event, or even a local WWF event, or like the events happening in Bermuda. You can add your events, and you can see the events are happening around in your city, in your country. And people can actually participate and join different events through the events page on earthhour.org. And also we have our Facebook account, a global Facebook page, Twitter, on various social media platforms. And that's also where you can connect and build your own group and your own communities.
All right, well, that's great. And for people who are just learning about Earth Hour and things of that nature, what would you say to them in closing? Just, why should they get involved? Why is Earth Hour important?
Absolutely. Earth Hour is at the very core of this movement is the people and how people come together and unite for our planet, our one shared home. And I would say one of the best thing about Earth Hour is the fact that it doesn't matter whether you're an individual, whether you're a community or a business, or even government, city government. You can all take part by looking at the various materials, open source material we give on earthhour.org. You can look at the event guidance book. You can do various campaigns and activities that best suits your community. So it could be organizing a beach cleanup. It could be, I'm actually doing a little Earth Hour event at my daughter's elementary school. That's my own very first Earth Hour virtual event. And be able to do something small like that, I think inspires people to say that, it's not that difficult to look after one another and our planet, that we can all make that small difference. It doesn't have to be a job. It can actually be in our daily lives, and that inspiration and that idea that all of us have a role to play, has a part to play in this bigger movement, and that we can all look after the planet makes a really big difference.
Well, Bonnie, it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm sure you guys must be exhausted after being up all day and all night, connecting with people all around the world. So in Little Bermuda, we feel so privileged to have had some time to speak with you tonight. So hopefully everyone who's watching can be inspired by our conversation, and we get more people having Earth Hour events in Bermuda and all around the world. So thank you again, and good luck with all the rest of your efforts tonight.
So glad to be here tonight. So really, really, again, all the best for the events, and all the best for Earth Hour in Bermuda.
Yes. All right. Thank you. And we'll speak again soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. So that was great. Just had Bonnie come in from Earth Hour Global. That was really cool. Just getting a really good understanding of what else happens around the world. I never really thought about that, but they actually are up all day and all night connecting with people all around the world. And I can tell you, they're really good at it, because several times my phone rings and they're calling for footage and images. And so this is not just an opportunity to make a difference in Bermuda, but it's also an opportunity for us to network and build relationships and have an impact all around the world. So we'll be right back with more from Earth Hour Live 2022 Bermuda. Give thanks. At Greenrock, we recognize that there are ways to continue improving our standard of living while preserving our natural resources for future generations. This approach, called sustainable development, holds out the possibility of real progress for humanity and is at the heart of all of our educational programs, awareness campaigns, and community events. By supporting Greenrock, you become a part of the solution by helping to change mindsets, inspire environmental action, develop sustainable solutions, build appreciation for nature, and preserve our biodiversity for generations to come. All right, greetings everyone, and welcome back to the Earth Hour Live broadcast. Today we're here with Aaron McKittrick from the Department of Energy. Greetings, Aaron.
Greetings.
So we're talking about energy, we're talking about sustainability. We understand that the government has made a number of moves in recent years, and specifically, there's been an effort to increase the inventory of electric vehicles in the government's fleet. So I wanted to talk a bit about that.
Sure.
Can you give me a little bit of history about it? Because I'll just say this before you kick in. There's always questions around these things, and people want to know, like, what is it about these electric vehicles that make them more sustainable?
Sure.
And why are they a good idea for people personally to make the switch, and also for governments to make the switch, you know? So that's what we wanted to talk
Sure,
about.
yeah. So I've been working with the government for about 2 or 3 years on looking at electric vehicles, what's happening on the island with electric vehicles. We've seen several players in the private sector, large vehicle owners, fleet owners in the private sector who've already started to transition their fleets. In the likes of Belco, the Corporation of Hamilton, even DHL. The Courier has also started to invest in vans and light vans, in transitioning, as I say, their fleets. And so I think the private sector and the market, not just locally but globally, is starting to move in that direction. Because I think primarily in the private sector they realize that there's a significant financial benefit to doing so. There was a reduced cost basically of operating the vehicles. And so that's really, I think, what the main driver is for most corporations anyway in making the transition. What we've also seen locally and around the world is also individuals, families starting to consider and purchase electric vehicles.
Right.
Again, I think primarily for financial reasons, but also, of course, because of the environmental benefits. You're reducing the amount of emissions that you're producing as an individual when you buy an electric vehicle. So those are the two main reasons. And what we're seeing now in government is also the government, as you've probably heard in terms of the electric buses, the government also now considering and purchasing vehicles as well. So the government is probably the biggest owner and operator of vehicles on the island. And so I think it makes sense for them to start to consider, what are the benefits? Let's look at understanding what the private sector obviously already know and believe to be true, and start to look to assess and look at the feasibility and potentially transitioning the government fleet. So,
yeah. So, in that transition, is it primarily the buses that the government has invested in, or are there other vehicles that have transitioned?
Yeah, so good question. The what we know is, as you've heard from the Ministry of Transport, is they've made the first step, if you want, in terms of moving towards replacing the bus fleet with electric vehicles. But what we're considering now also is all the rest of the vehicles as well. So looking at all the cars, the vans, even the motorcycles potentially, and understanding is there potential there for transitioning those vehicles? Are they feasible? Now, all vehicles may not be feasible in terms of how they're used, what they're used for, in terms of replacing it with an electric vehicle. But most vehicles, we believe, at least that's what we're trying to understand and study and analyze, is are there potential for cars, light vans, these kind of things, which could potentially be transitioned to EVs? And what are the benefits of it? But also, what are the challenges with it? Like any new technology, I always use the phone technology, if you want, moving from your old flip phone and your old cell phone to your fancy, smartphone with all the gadgets and bells and whistles, and you having to charge it, all of these kind of things. So that's the analogy that I like to use. So what do we have to consider what are those challenges that come with adoption of the vehicles? Do the users need to be educated, trained to maintain these vehicles? What does the charging infrastructure need to look like? Do we need to invest in charging infrastructure? So lots of questions to be answered, and lots of things. It's not just a flip the switch and make it happen. It obviously comes with a cost, and so understanding what that cost is as well.
Right.
So
the buses have already been acquired. So what would you say were the main drivers in that decision? And what are the benefits that government expects to receive as a result of making that transition with the buses?
I wasn't personally involved in that project, so I don't want to speak to or assume what ultimately this decision was by the Department of Public Transportation and the Minister of Transport. But I believe the motivation or the drive, for lack of a better word, was to understand how they could reduce the costs of the vehicles. So that's usually the main driver, as I said earlier, for considering new EV technology.
Right.
The benefits are going to potentially be, I would assume, like any other sort of investment in a fleet of electric vehicles. Again, a significant reduction in the cost of operation and maintenance, but also emissions. I can only assume that you look at the buses that we have now, which are diesel buses, versus a clean running, no emissions, at least from the tailpipe, zero emissions from the tailpipe vehicle, then it's going to be a much better experience for the users, the drivers, the road users, those driving behind the buses on a daily basis. Those kind of things I would assume and expect to see the benefits from. So
yeah, I'm sure most people in Bermuda are familiar with the black soot that was coming from our buses, but also the amount of outages we had in service because you had buses that were down. So I know just in talking to a lot of homeowners who have transitioned to electric vehicles, one of the benefits that they've expressed is the servicing part of it. Most of the things they can do on their own because it turns from a very complex internal combustion engine into a very simple structure because it's just a battery. Running an engine. So it's, a lot of the gaskets and the seals and the this and, I don't know how the service shops feel about it, but, now a lot of people can do most of the maintenance on those vehicles at home. So that's another learning curve. And, I'm sure for the staff and the government, it would be a learning curve as well.
Just changing, as you say, the how you approach the maintenance of the vehicles. It's good. All electric vehicles, hybrids, etc., are still going to need some sort of maintenance. So most modern vehicles these days are basically run by a computer. Whether it's a gas engine, a hybrid, or electric vehicles, there's a master computer that basically manages all the power systems, etc., in the vehicle. So just understanding what the differences are, I would imagine, between those vehicles, what the different diagnostic tools, etc. But in terms of your own maintenance, yes, most people are going to see a significant reduction in the time and money that they are going to have to spend on it. You're going to still have to spend money on replacing your tires, replacing your brake shoes, these kind of things, and basic maintenance of the vehicle. But you're right, it's many times less in terms of the moving parts and things that could fail. And so I think that simplicity is definitely going to be a benefit for the end user, for the purchaser of any electric vehicle, for sure.
Right. So just to kind of close it out, obviously, from the Department of Energy, you're looking over energy in total in the island and, all things that contribute or are involved with that whole segment or industry. What would you say the department's goals are? What would the department like to see in the long term? Or what do you think we could see potentially in the country as it relates to electric vehicles? What's kind of like the vision?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think maybe I'll pivot slightly from that question and speak more about what I think the potential is on the island from working. Basically what the department do now is we support these energy transition projects across the government. So myself and my colleagues within the department have been working with different departments and ministries, as I say. My colleague Adrian Dill has worked with the Department of Public Transportation on the bus project. I'm working with the Ministry of Public Works on the EV project. So, but what I would say is what we've learned, I think, in the last few years that we've been working with those departments and ministries on this changing environment is the potential for Bermuda in making that step, making that shift to more renewable technologies. So moving away from the old fossil fuel-based status quo situation to looking at the potential of adopting these technologies and what the benefits are to the island. And I think there's significant benefits. We've seen that, we can just see that in the increased numbers in purchase of electric vehicles. We know that people realize those benefits, as I mentioned earlier. The same if you look at solar PV and solar panels and people investing in solar panels. We've had significant increase in the number of applications, I believe, go to planning for new systems being installed on people's roofs. And so I think that just shows that we're on the right path, if you want, and there's great potential, and we just need to continue to move forward and start continue thinking about what the benefits of these adoption of these new technologies are.
Okay. All right. Well, give thanks, Aaron. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and sustainability and energy efficiency and all that are key elements of a lot of conversations in these times. So in the community, I encourage everyone to just take a look out at these new technologies. If you haven't really considered electric vehicles, just take a look at it. You can look online, talk to people who have vehicles, and even with the buses. I know people were talking about the buses are small and things of that nature, but we have to look at the pros and what the benefits are and the long-term view. And if we can considerably reduce the amount of emissions we have from our transportation systems, then that would be a huge benefit for everyone who lives here and everyone who comes to visit the island. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you again, Aaron.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a few minutes. Give thanks.
Do you want to make a difference in the community, one project at a time? Become a member of Greenrock. Greenrock is committed to changing mindsets by empowering individuals and companies to do their part in making Bermuda more sustainable. Whether it's hosting our Green Building Forum, advocating for clean air, installing hydration stations, or promoting renewable energy, Greenrock is committed to a better Bermuda. If you're looking for community hours or keen on environmental action, Greenrock always welcomes volunteers. Vast experience is not necessary. All you need is passion and the desire to become a part of a worthy cause. Whether you can spare a few hours or a few days, we'd love to have you as a member. To join us, visit our website, greenrock.org, or call 747-ROCK. That's 747-7625. Greenrock, changing the mindset.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Earth Hour Live 2022. I'm here today to talk about EVs. I've got my friend David from Bermuda Charge, and I have Glenn from Auto Solutions. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here this evening.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, give thanks. So, David, I thought it'd be great to talk to you a bit because of Bermuda Charge. And I wanted you just to share with our audience just a little bit about the event and why you've embarked upon it in Bermuda.
Sure. So Bermuda Charge is a celebration of Bermuda's motoring culture. And we do encompass all types of transport within Bermuda. So we do have the old school vintage and classic bikes and cars, but also we've got a very strong focus on Bermuda's future, which is EVs. So at our event, which is an annual show, and we're doing one on 3rd of July in Front Street, going to be a huge auto show. We're going to have a whole electric avenue focusing on what's new in the EV sector in Bermuda and what can you have and what can you buy right now.
Okay.
So Scudamart has stepped forward as our title sponsor once again, very generously. And Nick would have loved to be here today. He had an emergency. But I'm going to tell you about the product that they're bringing to the show and they're very excited about. So it's called the NIU. NIU is the name of the bike, and it's the GT Evo. And they developed it. This company produces 1 million bikes a year. 1 million bikes a year. So they're not a fly-by-night company. They know what they're doing, and they've been going since 2014, produce really high-quality vehicles. And their vision with the Evo GT was to create something that performs better than anything in the 125cc scooter class at the moment. So it's a step-through scooter. In my eyes, it looks a bit like a modern interpretation of the Vespa. So it's step through, and it's got kind of large panels and that kind of thing. It looks really nice, circular headlight at the front. And they've got the speed up now so that you can drive these things at 100. It can get to 100 kilometers an hour. So that's comparable with the 125 scooters on the market. Okay, and it's fast off the line, so it feels torquey. It's got a range of 150 kilometers.
Okay,
that's 5 times up and down the island.
All right,
but is it affordable? It costs the same as its comparable equivalent. So you're talking $3,000 to $5,000. Whatever price you see on their website in Europe, the UK, that's the same price that you would pay here. There's no markup. There's no shipping cost increase for Bermuda consumers. So you pay the same as our counterparts in Europe. And this thing is loaded with technology. So that is a big plus over the current combustion equivalents. So they have an app, and you can download it, test it. I got it on my phone actually. Just download it, have a look. You can trial run through the app, without actually having the bike. And things you can do are you can limit your bike to 45 kilometers per hour, and they can be registered as blue plates. So if you want your 16-year-old child to have a bike, and you want it to be at a sensible speed, you can register it as a blue plate. You can limit it to 45 kilometers an hour. When they get older and they need a more powerful bike, you just de-restrict it. You go into Scudamart, you de-restrict it, and they can have a bike that now can get up to 100 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
The app allows you to track the location of the bike at any point. It notifies you if there's unauthorized movement of the bike, and it gives you multi-user access to the bike. So let's say you and I shared this bike in our household, and you wanted me to leave the bike in town for you to collect. I can leave the bike in town, and you can access it with your phone.
Okay.
Because you have a user profile set up on the bike.
Yeah, it's so interesting with the technology. It's something that, I know I didn't realize, I wasn't thinking of initially, but, with electric cars and electric bikes, they're now like devices. Just like a lot of the other devices that we're using, and you have all this integration with your computers, with your phones, and things of that nature. Like, yeah.
And you had asked me what are the benefits of EVs and two-wheel EVs, and a huge benefit with this is, like you say, these things run more like appliances. We think of motorcycles, we think of combustion motors.
Right.
But these things have hub motors in the wheel. It actually runs a lot more like a household appliance, like an appliance would. So then you've got minimal maintenance. You don't spend hundreds of dollars maintaining the appliances in your household, and it's the same with the bikes. It costs less than $100 a year to maintain versus the $400 or $500 you should be spending on your combustion bike to service and maintain. And then the fuel cost, you're going to save about $600 to $800 a year in fuel. It's a couple of dollars to charge this thing up to full. So you're looking at $1,000 saving a year. 3 years you've paid for your bike.
Yeah, very interesting. Lots of benefits for the consumer. Yeah, so Glenn, what about in the four-wheel market with cars,
We've just recently brought in the Hyundai Kona, which is EV. And we've been trying to get it for Bermuda since 2018. And we finally were allowed to bring it in. And so we've been blessed by Hyundai to say, yes, you can have it in Bermuda, and they're also starting to go through the Caribbean. We've seen a lot of success, a lot of interest in the EVs, particularly the Hyundai that we've just recently brought in. The issue that we're running into, like all the industry, is the micro component chips. And you look at an EV car, particularly, let's look at the Kona, there's over 4,000 microchips in that vehicle, versus a combustion engine, we could have anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 chips. And so hence there's a shortage, not just because of the car industry, but any industry that has a chip in it. Your phone, your computer, the bikes to come, the mic that we're talking on right now. There's an issue around the world, and even building fridges, because everything has a chip in it today. So anyhow, we've had success. We've had a lot of interest. The car's a beautiful car to drive. You get 300 miles to the charge, or we'll call it 488 kilometers. And when you do a comparative to what it would cost if you had a similar size car, and this car is an F-Class car, if you were to fill up at any of the service stations, you're roughly looking, on average, the person drives in Bermuda about 28 miles a day. And so that equates to roughly $2,800 a year you'll spend at either Rubis or Seoul. And if you're to plug into Mr. Belko with our EV vehicle, you will pay just over $1,000 a year to run on Belko's. That's $1,800 savings, which is essentially a 65% savings versus going to the petrol station.
Right.
And then if you have solar panels on your home, it costs you $290 a year to run. So
Wow.
it's unbelievable, and it's real, and it certainly works.
And the same with the maintenance, right?
That's correct. And in our industry, it's not good for my business at the end of the day, because
I was just going to say that to you.
No, it's
Yeah,
not
the service stations.
No, but not in the service stations, but it's not good for the service side of our business. We employ a load of techs, at least 12 techs that we have on hand. And the idea of how the EV was all created is to benefit the consumer, such as yourselves, or such as our audience, and such as my wife. She's just ordered a Hyundai Kona herself. And so she won't have to come and see us twice a year for a service. And if anything, she'll only have to come in once a year, and it's literally going to be either looking at the brake pads, looking at the tires, rotating the tires, and the integrity of the car.
Right.
That is about it.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, the hours are negligible to what it would be to have a full service, because there's more moving parts, as David said, in a combustion engine than certainly these motors that are on these wheels that are turning the car. Essentially, electric car has three things. It has obviously the motor, it has the converter, and it has a charging station on board. That is it.
Right.
And it's got all the bells and whistles. It's quiet. It's got charging. You put your phone down on the charging pad, wireless charging, pardon me, and every port in the car has a charging station for your family in the back. And typical car has all the AC and all the components that go with it. So it's a lovely, lovely vehicle to drive, and the takeoff is just unbelievable.
Right.
And also it has the recharging ability. When you're braking, it will charge, or you can set the charging to either echo on or to recharge as you're driving along. So literally, you could take your foot off the brake and the car would almost stop, so you don't need your foot on the brake. And it's charging. It's not necessarily need a downhill run. You can do it absolutely along the flat too.
Okay. All right. So it looks like a lot of benefits for the end user, for the consumer, when you go into electric vehicles. I remember back in the day, it was like, oh, I'm not getting one of those box cars, because, people couldn't see how the EVs matched up with the existing internal combustion engine vehicles, whether it be bikes or cars. Now, what I'm hearing is that the technology has gotten to the point where the benefits actually far outweigh any potential risks or anything, and the products seem to be much improved.
Well, if you look at our car that we've just recently brought in, when we first got involved in electric cars, particularly at Auto Solutions, our first car was the Nissan Leaf, and that was their first model. They came out. It wasn't the most attractive looking model. And then you look at some of the electric cars that have been out around the road. It looks like we've been in the Jetson family. Remember the Jetsons growing up?
Yeah.
And now we've got this Kona that comes in that looks like a car.
Right.
It looks and feels like a car, and it has all these added benefits for the consumer to have.
Right, for real.
I really wanted one. I actually approached them to get one. I'm really sold on the ventilated seats. Ventilated seats in Bermuda sounds really, really good to me. Cold air blowing on my back in July, August.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they'd sold out actually, so
Yeah.
I couldn't get one.
Well, that's good. It's good to know that the industry is growing and building. I mean, You know, I mean, we've had some experiences ourselves. It hasn't been easy trying to shift people's mindsets into even looking at these technologies, but now it looks like the technology is doing the job for us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
yeah, I've got a great story about that. So your slogan is change the mindset, and the slogan for Bermuda Charge is accelerating Bermuda's sustainable future. You know, and we're on a similar journey to look at the mindset, and it doesn't need to happen overnight. And we do want to recognise all the beauty of the combustion culture in Bermuda. At the same time, we want to be sensible and move forward practically. And this story, I guess, you and I met Nick, who was the title sponsor for the first time with Scootamart three years ago. And we were doing a promotional video for Greenrock and for the event. And I remember Nick just wasn't getting it about electric bikes at that time. He just wasn't getting it. Okay? And the more and more we spoke to him, he really didn't want much to do with it at that time. Then he thought on it overnight after we'd all met. Then he started to look into them. And for him, that it wasn't quite there yet, but he started to look into it. And this is what I'm talking about with changing the mindset. Now, this summer, he's going to be launching a flagship store in Hamilton exclusively for this new brand, all electric. So we've gone from a guy that didn't want to hear
anything about electric vehicles,
to a guy that is launching a flagship store with the most successful two-wheel EV provider in the world, you know.
Right.
So that's great for the transport solutions in Bermuda. That's great for moving us forward. If you go to Europe, people are all driving these things because it just makes sense. It performs the same, it looks great, and it is affordable. And those things were missing before. You had to make a sacrifice. It's like with health food. You had to sacrifice something. I don't want to eat lentils and chia seeds all day, you know. I don't want to pay more for that privilege. There was always a sacrifice with EVs. Either it didn't look great like the Nissan Leaf, or it cost too much because of the cost of batteries at that time, or it didn't go very far, or it just simply was slow. And now they're fast, they're good looking, they're affordable, they cost a lot less to run. And you know, neither of us have even talked about the green benefits of it, because we don't have to anymore.
Right. Real. Yeah, they sell themselves. Yeah, range anxiety was a real thing. And then, you know, I talk to people nowadays and they're like, well, I kind of charge my vehicle once a week.
That's great.
You know what I mean? So all that's like going completely out the window. It's so great to see this technology move to a level where we can enjoy it. We've been talking in other interviews about the pollution that comes from our transportation in the island.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And the government's going and made an investment in electric buses. Everybody's familiar with the black soot that comes out of the back of those buses that we've been using for years. So the impact of transitioning to, you know, EVs is real. Everyone will be able to see it. The noise pollution goes down, the air pollution, you know, goes away. You know, and all of a sudden, like, you know, it's just this huge improvement all across the country. And also, people are benefiting. You know, it's great when you see these products emerge where the consumer is the main benefactor at the end of the day. You know?
And you asked me on the phone, why should people make the switch? So why should the consumer make the switch? And now it's a very straightforward solution. So if I was to say to somebody why they should make the switch, I've made the switch, I'm in a hybrid at the moment. It makes me happy because when I'm coasting, when I'm braking, it's like I'm getting free money.
Right.
You know, I got the hybrid at the beginning of this month, and like Glenn said, average 28 miles a day. That's about me, maybe a bit more than that. I've done 400 miles in it, and I pulled up today. So I filled the tank at the beginning of the month, 400 miles in it, pulled up today. I've got 200 miles of range left. Right. That makes me so happy. I'm going to go through to next month. And I don't even have to fill the thing, and it charges itself as it drives, you know, so.
All right. Well, that's great. Well, there you have it, everyone. There's clear benefits to go into electric vehicles. You know, now we have vendors on the island that have products that are available, ready for you to enjoy and benefit from. So thank you guys very much for coming in tonight and speaking to us. It's really been a pleasure. I hope everyone has learned something from this, and I hope that we can all transition to EVs. Give thanks. Okay, so Chris, how would you define sustainable farming? What is that?
Yeah, like you were saying, sustainable, organic, those are a lot of loaded words, so it's important to be able to properly define them. Sustainable for me, sustainable farming for me, definitely needs to be any practice that focuses on growing soil health as its priority. Before we even think about growing food for ourselves or growing food for profit, we need to think about what kind of methods can I use, what kind of farming methods can I use to grow the health of the soil. Once you get the soil figured out, you have healthy soil, growing healthy plants, healthy food actually becomes a lot easier, and we need a lot less chemical fertilizer. We need less chemical fertilizer and no insecticides and pesticides. Yeah, we use a method called Grow Biointensive that has 8 components. We don't want to go into depth, but the most important elements would be incorporating diversity within the garden. So we want to move away from growing one particular plant. We want to grow a diverse amount of plants as possible. So for us here in Bermuda, what we've done in our education garden is incorporate grains that we grow and also high calorie crops. The grains are really important because they give us calories to eat, and then the plant body, the very tall plant body we use, is fuel that we use for our compost pile. Composting allows us to use nature's recycling process, and we're able to make compost, and that allows us to return organic matter back to the soil, which is the life of soil. We're talking about healthy soil. The most important thing we need to get back into our soil is organic matter.
What's involved with that, and how feasible is it to grow organic crops in Bermuda?
Right, again, it would be defining and setting criteria on what does organic mean. If we're here in our small 21 square mile island thinking that we're gonna have organic standards like they have in the United States, you know, they have the USDA certified organic. All the time people bring up in Bermuda, organic's impossible in Bermuda because we're too close to the road, which it totally is the reality, because here we are, you know, directly close to the road. So, you know, unfortunately, no matter how organic we are growing our soil, our garden, our plants, we are affected by runoff from the road and stuff like that, which really shines a light on sort of our society as a whole. So we are very dependent on vehicles to go back and forth. You know, we are not connected to the land, so how can we reverse that? How can more of us that are at least interested in, I mean, I believe that every able-bodied adult person should be involved in some way in food growing, but you know, the goal should be really to get more people growing food, become more centralized, needing less transportation, running back and forth to your job or where you got to go. Maybe we can reduce pollution and grow more food at the same time. So that's the biggest challenge for us in Bermuda in certified organic. But that doesn't mean that what we're doing in our garden, we can control that, right? So the controlled aspect of organic would definitely mean not using chemical fertilizers and chemical insecticides, pesticides. That being said, there are products, materials that are also certified in the United States, Armory it's called, where you can use, you know, there are organic fertilizers and there are organic insecticides and stuff you can use. So for us as a whole in Bermuda, if that's something that we want to create a policy around, we'd have to identify what those materials are and start using them. But really, if you want to be a successful organic operation, it's about using these organic fertilizers, growing the soil, and most importantly, the only way that organic farming would work in Bermuda is that more people get involved. We have these unsustainable practices that are destroying soil, you know, creating toxins, have the chemicals on our food that we're growing. You know, these practices are only about because so little of our population is involved in food growing. If we can get more people working in the garden, working in the fields, doing what they love, then we don't need to use so much mechanization, which destroys the organic matter in the soil, which makes the plants weak, which means that we need to use more chemical fertilizer and insecticides. So what's missing is the human element from the organic farming in Bermuda.
Okay everyone, welcome back to Earth Hour Live 2022. So now we're going to shift a bit. We're going to talk a bit about plastic. You know, everyone's heard different things about single-use plastics over the years. And so we thought we would bring in two of the key people from Beyond Plastic Bermuda. We have Eric Hetzel and Katie Berry. Greetings. Welcome to Earth Hour Live.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, yes. Glad to have you. We had to Zoom you guys into the show. Everyone's pretty much familiar with these types of platforms nowadays, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. So, Eric, I just wanted to say to you, just give our audience an overview. Like, what is the concern with single-use plastic, and why are governments around the world implementing single-use plastic bans?
Right, well, single-use plastic accounts for about 50% of or about half of the production of plastic in the world. So if you're going to focus on a single item or single class of items, single-use plastic, stuff that people hold in their hands for maybe 5 minutes to 10 minutes, is the place to focus. So that's why single-use plastic is being focused on. The reason that plastics in general is being focused on by governments, and the world at large, is because there are at least five main issues with plastics. And a lot of people, most people, especially in Bermuda, they're familiar with the first one. That's the environment. And we're familiar because we walk down the beach and we see, tons of little pieces of plastic bottle caps and plastic this and plastic that washed up on the beach. Or we walk through our neighborhoods and we see plastic bags. We see, various plastic litter in our hedgerows. So we're familiar with this kind of macro environmental effect that we see, but what we're not aware of is that also plastics is a big factor in climate change. And climate change is something everybody's really familiar with now. Plastics is estimated to contribute somewhere around, say, 7 to 10% of climate change greenhouse gases today, and that's going to grow to like about 20% if we do nothing. The other issue is there's a lot of economic impacts of plastic. It definitely has an effect because we have to pay to pick up litter, we have to pay for healthcare effects, we have to pay everywhere along the cycle that plastic is either extracted from the ground because it's extracted as petroleum and then manufactured into plastic. So at every step along the way, including use and disposal, there's a cost associated with plastic. And that's affecting our economies. Part of that in there when I talk about extraction and production, there's also a social justice issue with plastic, because if you live in a community that is impacted by the extraction or production or disposal, so imagine that you live next to a factory that's got gases emanating from it, or they're polluting the groundwater, then your family's impacted to a greater extent than anybody else is.
Right.
And so by supporting plastics, you're part of the system.
Right.
Last that we focus on, especially and is critical for everyone that's listening, is human health. So all plastic has an impact on human health. Plastics is the chemicals found in plastic. They're implicated in a lot of negative effects, wide-ranging negative effects. A long laundry list of negative effects that are affecting every person in Bermuda. That consumes food that's put into plastic, drinks water out of a plastic water bottle, because you're being contaminated with plastics, unfortunately.
Right.
So that's, in a nutshell, that's why governments are focused on it. That's why we're focused on it.
Right. All right. So, Katie, I understand that there's a lot of work that has been going on and continues to go on in the community from the Beyond Plastic Bermuda initiative. Can you share with the audience a bit about, what work is being done?
Yeah, so we came together almost a year ago, and what we've been kind of left with is the KBB and Best and some other individuals who have been working on this project for the best part of a year, doing a lot of research, looking at what other countries are doing, and how their legislation works and how it could possibly work in Bermuda. And we've been in constant communication with the government, trying to kind of pass on what we're learning to them. But what we're really interested in doing is helping with the change. So helping Bermudians and helping small businesses and the business models in Bermuda be ready for what is going to be a change. Change is never always, it's not going to be easy. But if we're clever about this and with Beyond Plastic's help, we're hoping that actually we can come out the other side of this in a better way, and that our business models will be healthier, and we have less. We're kind of trying to help move the island as well to really looking at their waste and reducing the waste, and getting rid of single-use plastic fits with this idea as well.
Yes. All right. Well, give thanks. So, with all the outreach that's going on with connecting with different businesses, different vendors and things of that nature, what's the reception been like? Or even with your collaboration or communication with government, how is the Beyond Plastic Bermuda initiative being received in the community?
So it's been incredibly positive, and we have support all over the place. I mean, certainly when we've done any research within the community is completely behind this move. And certainly the international business sector has been hugely supportive. And so it's definitely something that as a community we feel has widespread support. It's just working with the businesses that are going to be impacted by the legislation.
All right, so that's the focus and I guess the biggest challenge to overcome, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're really looking to kind of help and inspire, and we've done a lot of research into alternatives. Eric knows more about plastics and greenwashing than anybody I know, and we're trying to share that information with people so that they can avoid the pitfalls and make smart choices around these changes. Right. This is about coming together and doing something that is going to have a positive impact on future generations and on all of our lives, because nobody kind of really realizes just the health impacts that plastic has on humans and on our fragile ecosystems.
Right. So Eric, with all the information that you've gathered, with all the things that you know about plastic, with different groups and individuals coming together to support this process, what is it that you feel is required at this point to make this initiative, right, as successful as you would like to see it, you know?
I think as long as it's about support from the community, and that's what we're trying to encourage people to do, is support this initiative, because it does take a sea change in some of the things that we do, is in our everyday life. And so, but rather than look on the negative and for people to say, well, this is difficult or this is different, I mean, for people just to accept that this is for the betterment of themselves, for their health, and the betterment of the planet as a whole and our island, and to look for solutions, and to, not just look and say, well, this is difficult, but to say, well, this is difficult, but I can do this instead, because there are alternatives, but it does take an adjustment sometimes. Plastic is, single-use plastic in particular, is really very, it's everywhere around us. It's pervasive, so we've, you just have to find alternatives. But life goes on because, there was no plastic before, say, 1950s, really, in any significant amounts, and we all existed just fine. So in some ways, we just have to go, back to using some of the things we used before.
Right. Okay, so if someone's watching the program right now and saying, okay, this makes sense to me, how could they support? How would you like them to support? Is it getting involved with what's being done? Or is it listening to the advice that's being given and being supportive in terms of the way they act? And what about companies? What if a company is looking at this, or someone from a company, what would you like for them to do to support this initiative?
We really want them to become a Beyond Plastic champion.
Okay.
And so, you know, as an individual, there are choices that you can make to get rid of single-use plastic in your life. As an organization, you can make sure that your organization isn't using single-use plastics and supporting your employees to move away from single-use plastics. You know, it really is, and of course, there's always the benefit of a financial donation to the campaign.
Yes.
But, you know, at the end of the day, what we really want is to create a wave of change. And the wave of change happens when individuals and organizations and community groups all come together and make these changes together and support each other. So that's what we really want, is for people to reach out and say, how do we do this? How can we do this successfully? How does this work in the Bermuda context? And you know, we're here and we're ready to talk and we're ready to help and give advice and come into your offices, or, you know, meet with your schools or your community groups and kind of figure out the problem, because, you know, there are solutions, and sometimes it just means we have to be a little bit more creative. And Bermudians are good at that. And so, you know, I really believe if everybody kind of sees this as something to be curious about, something to kind of engage with, as opposed to be opposed to,
Right.
I think we could come up with some really great solutions. And as a community, we will all be better off for it.
All right.
There's a famous quote, actually, if I could, which says, we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly.
Okay.
So that can be said in Bermuda. We don't need, you know, just a couple of us doing plastic free, you know, perfectly. But if everybody did a little bit, you know, that would be enough.
All right. Yeah.
I mean, a simple change, for example, is everybody that's going into town, when they go and get their coffee from their favorite coffee shop, if they all used a reusable container, reusable coffee cup every day, can you imagine the reduction in waste in Bermuda immediately?
Right.
You know, sometimes it's just one thing that will have a huge amount of impact, and certainly in Bermuda, coffee cups is one of them.
Right, for sure. So you heard that, everyone. It's the small changes that we make on a day-to-day basis that can have a huge impact on this initiative. The government is in the process of putting together a single-use plastic ban. That may be something that many people are waiting for and welcoming, and other people may be afraid. So reach out to Beyond Plastic Bermuda, whether you have questions, queries, or you need assistance or help. You know, they're formed, they're community-based, they're ready to assist, and they want to help everyone to be able to adapt to the changes that are coming down the pipeline. So thank you very much, Katie. Thank you very much, Eric, for coming on and sharing. I wish you all the best with your initiative, and I encourage all of you to get your families and all to turn off your lights at 8:30 tonight for Earth Hour. All right? Give thanks. Thank you, everyone on the show. You guys have a good evening. We'll be right back.
If you're looking for community hours or keen on environmental action, Greenrock always welcomes volunteers. Vast experience is not necessary. All you need is passion and the desire to become a part of a worthy cause. Whether you can spare a few hours or a few days, we love to have you as a member. To join us, visit our website, greenrock.org, or call 747-ROCK. That's 747-7625. Greenrock, changing the mindset.
What is a zero-energy building? Most buildings today use a lot of energy to keep the lights on, cool the air, heat water, and power personal devices. Even installing solar systems will not significantly counter the heavy energy load. There are, however, some buildings that strike a balance, or even tip the scales the other way. These are called zero-energy buildings. They manage this feat by being extremely energy efficient, saving 50 to 70% more energy than typical buildings. In these ultra-high performance buildings, the amount of energy used can be completely offset by renewable energy produced on or around the building. When conditions are not suitable for energy generation, the building will draw energy from the electrical grid to meet its needs. When conditions improve, the on-site renewable energy systems will cover the building's energy need and send excess energy back into the grid to make up the balance. Over the course of a year, the building gives back as much energy as it takes. When zero-energy concepts are applied to groups of buildings, the benefits are shared and multiplied within that zero-energy community. These buildings are also more comfortable, more reliable, affordable to build and operate, and better for the environment. While these might seem like buildings of the future, new technologies are constantly emerging that make zero energy easier and easier to achieve today. In fact, there are already hundreds of zero-energy buildings across the US in many different climates. By becoming ultra-efficient and giving back as much energy as they consume, zero-energy buildings will play an important part in creating a more competitive, energy-secure future.
All right, greetings everyone. Welcome back to Earth Hour Live 2022. I'm here with Damon Webb from AESG. Greetings, Damon.
Greetings. A pleasure to be here. Happy half hour to all your viewers.
Yes, give thanks. So, we had you on the show last year, and I wanted to bring you back because, you know, we talk in shows like this a lot of times about the challenges and things of that nature, but, you know, we also want to show people that there's been a lot of progress and there are things that we can also celebrate. So, we understand that, you know, you're heavily involved with a project and just wanted to give you the platform to be able to tell us a little bit about what's going on at the National Sports Center.
Much appreciated. So yes, it's been a long journey for us, but again, we're thankful and there has been progress. Mm-hmm. And I hope that this is a catalyst for others to do similar things. But this project was actually started way back in 2018. When we won the bid to provide energy solutions for the National Sports Center.
Okay.
And was a exact fit for us because that's what we do, Atlantic Energy Solutions Group. You notice I didn't say renewables.
Right.
We deal with solutions, and the solution up at National Sports Center is a three-pronged solution, right? And those three prongs include energy efficiency, because we need to, get more for less. Demand side management, and that speaks to the metering and monitoring. You can't see electricity, you know what I mean? So you don't know what's happening until you get your bill from Belco.
Right.
And then the final thing is renewables, if they're applicable, because renewables are not always applicable because they have a cost associated with it. So as far as our project is concerned, we have energy. Well, the first aspect was the heat pump. Now, the heat pump is actually basically a heating unit that heats the pool. So that is the lion's share of the load up at the National Sports Center.
Wow.
The heat pump, I think, equates to probably maybe $20,000 a month in energy consumption.
Consumption up there, yeah.
Yeah,
because that pool is used all year round.
It's used all year round. It's Olympic size.
Yeah.
You can't really appreciate the amount of water that's in that pool. And that water has to be cooled to 80 degrees. So that was the first step, which was replacing the heat pump there. And so the heat pump that we installed is 20% more efficient than the heat pump that was there before. The next part of the project was the stadium lights, because that will probably be the next largest consumer of electricity. So at this point, we've completed the hockey stadium. Our next task is to complete the pool, and then what they call the North Stadium, and then the grandstand. And the reason it's done in that is because of the events that they're having. I think the National Stadium's having a soccer game on April, sometime in April. So we wouldn't have been able to complete all the lights because that's the rugby stadium and the grandstand have the lion's share of the lights.
Of the lights. Okay.
So, and it takes quite some time to do this. And the other factor was weather. Obviously, these things are way up. You got to lift the crane, and so you know, you're subject to the weather conditions. Any high winds, you don't want to be up there because you want to be safe. So anyway, from an energy efficiency, we're talking about reducing the consumption of the heat pump and reducing the consumption of the lights by changing them to LED. And then we have the metering aspect so that you can now see what you're using and when you're using. And some of the issues that commercial buildings have is that, you know, 20% of the energy, up to 20% could be in losses. But you don't know that. Like I said, you get a bill at the end of the month. With the energy management system that is completely installed right now, we can see when energy is being used by which device, depending on how far downstream we go in terms of measurement. And then we can make some conscious decisions based on forecasting and based on knowing about, you know, where we want to be and what we want to do with that energy consumption.
Okay.
And one of the things that we found out very quickly is that there was a pump that kicked in at like 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Every morning. And we could tell you how much it cost you and all that type stuff. And we were able to highlight that, identify that, and then get back to them and say, hey, do you know this is taking place? Because it may be legit. But if it isn't, now you have the power to actually do something about it.
Yeah, you have the information.
You have the information you need to make decisions. And so that's what's key about demand side management. And then finally, you have the renewable part of it, which enables you to produce your own energy, use your own energy, and any excess you get back to the grid. Now, in terms of size, we've actually got 3 different solutions or 3 different projects essentially in one. And so there's the grandstand meter and project. And then there's the aquatics, which is the pool, and then there's the North Pavilion, which is the rugby stadium. And so each one of those are completely independent of each other. They're not interconnected or anything like that. So
it's 3 independent.
It's 3 independent, and it's just as independent as if one was in St. George's, one was in Taunton, and one was in Hamilton. They're not electrically connected, and therefore, you know, the designs are specific to the loads from those particular meters. And so we have planning permission with that in terms of progress, and we're now getting ready to submit for the building. So no shovels have been in the ground as of yet for the solar piece of it. The heat pump is installed, hasn't been commissioned yet, but we expect it to be commissioned within the next week or so. The lights are a continuous process, and again, the energy management system has been installed since January, which gives them added information about how to manage their energy. So, so it's a complicated project, and even more so now that we're actually doing it. You know, we've had about 76 people work on the project to date, of which 95% have been Bermudians. A lot of the designs, particularly with the microgrid, was designed by a foreign company, so they've come down, you know, to add to the project their expertise, as well as with the heat pump. But in general, it's been Bermudians working. So that's obviously a plus in this environment. We got Bermudians working. We're taking the opportunity to save the National Sports Center money with the lights being installed now. We can show on the system where they're saved money already.
Right away. Yes,
and what people need to understand, if they don't appreciate, is that we pay the electric bill for the National Sports Center, right? Because the government pays, and we pay the government via taxes. So again, you know, my mind has always been, if we can save the government money, they can do stuff that, you know, I'll throw this out there tongue in cheek, I guess, but we have the worst roads in the developed world, right? So if we can save the government money, they can feed the homeless, they can fix these roads, they can do some other stuff, right?
But the money could be used to address other
social,
or that money gets
financial,
for electricity.
Exactly.
Right. So
And so you know, I take great pride and pleasure in knowing that we're saving this country money, and that money can be used to do other things. And then on top of that, in terms of the green footprint, we're talking about Earth Hour. We're reducing the need for fossil fuels on this island. So again, and saving people money. So from that perspective, it's just a win-win situation for everybody as it relates to this project. But it started off a challenge. It continues to be a challenge, and it will be a challenge until it's actually done. So hopefully by this time next year, we can go up there and walk and see everything up and running. Yeah. So we're just like I said, we're grateful for the opportunity, and we're committed to making this thing work, so that Bermuda has a showcase, and we can be a shining star for the Caribbean and the world in terms of the initiatives we've taken to create a sustainable solution for our island.
For our island, yeah. So give thanks. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. Yeah.
Anytime.
And it's what I want to highlight is the comprehensiveness. So you heard Damon say, we didn't just come out. It's just not just about renewables. It's solutions. So he went on energy efficiency, and these are all things that we can do at home.
Absolutely.
Energy efficiency, monitoring, so you actually know what electricity you're using and what appliances or devices are using it, and then you add in the renewables. You know what I mean? Which is moving us away from fossil fuel generation. So thank you again, Damon. That's great. I look forward to next year.
Absolutely.
We can take the cameras, go right up to the project, and let everybody see all the work that's being done right now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Give thanks.
Appreciate it.
And we'll be back with more from Earth Hour Live 2022. Give thanks.
Since 2007, we have encouraged people around the world to switch off their lights during Earth Hour to call attention to climate change.
More than a decade later, the climate crisis remains, made worse by the rapid loss of biodiversity and nature.
Nature underpins everything around us, from food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. It impacts our very livelihoods and our quality of life. Today, Earth Hour aims to spark global conversations on protecting nature, not only to combat the climate crisis, but to ensure our own health, happiness, prosperity, and even survival.
With your support, Earth Hour can be a spotlight moment that puts nature at the center of international conversations.
Together, we can speak up and show our leaders that nature matters, and urgent action must be taken to reverse its rapid loss.
Join us on Saturday, March 26th at 8:30 p.m. by turning off all unnecessary lights and joining us on the path to net zero.
Tonight, I want to thank everyone for joining us for Earth Hour Live 2022. It's really been a pleasure bringing this production to you. Thank you to all the guests. Thank you to all our sponsors for supporting our campaign this year. And remember, everyone, lights out from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. See you next year. Give thanks. Peace and love.
I want to live in a future where the water is clean, the air is fresh, and the soil is rich and full of life.
Where we enjoy the resources nature provides in a sustainable and responsible way.
Where world leaders put the well-being of the planet above politics.
Where innovation and technology is used to improve our lives, but not at the expense of nature.
I want to live in a future where my children can pursue their dreams without worrying about the extreme weather, pandemics, and food shortage.
I want to live in a future where we can all look back and know that we have done the right thing.
We are a part of nature, and nature is a part of us.
And nature provides us with everything we have and everything we need.
Yet we're emptying the very forests, oceans, and rivers that provide us life.
As we adapt our lives to deal with the greatest public health crisis of the century, we have opportunity to reset our relationship with nature and create a future where people and nature thrive together.
7,000 cities across the world are dimming their lights.
In the global Lights Out campaign.
The campaign involves people switching off their lights for an hour.
Raise awareness about climate change and the environment.
Earth Hour 2022 will be a key moment for us all to unite and show our resolve to shape a nature-positive future.
Join us on March 26th
at 8:30 p.m.
for Earth Hour.
Earth Hour.
Earth Hour.
And together, shape the future of our one and shared home.
In these make or break years, let your actions and voices send a clear message to leaders everywhere. Now is the time to be bold and ambitious. We all must do our part to safeguard our planet. Together, we can build a brighter and more prosperous future.
We must come together, from governments, businesses to every individual across society.
Let's come together to protect our planet.
Protect our one shared home.
When we come together, we can make a change.
Let's shape our future.
Let's shape our future.
Let's shape our future.
Let's shape our future.
Together possible.
Together possible.
Together possible.
We are in this together.